All right, here we go. It's time to talk about podcast websites. I know you're probably rolling your eyes and thinking, oh my God, this is so much stuff. In the first week, we launched a trailer. In this week, we've learned so much I can't stop the headache I have. And now I'm talking to you in the last video of the week about building a website. And I know this is a lot, right? This is an accelerator. Accelerator means extreme speed. And hopefully, you're going to remember that you get 3 months of support after the accelerator. So get through the 4 weeks. Launch that quick if you can. But remember, if you don't, you've still got 3 months of access to the community and to me and to some regular calls. So if you feel under the gun, breathe easy. Breathe easy, baby. It's going to be okay. You've got time. So this is podcastpage.io. And just to show you what this looks like, I'm going to go to my Stoicism Podcast website at stoicismpod.com. And this is, in fact, a podcastpage.io website. It's very simple. It has a menu at the top. It has a button to subscribe, to see all the places you can subscribe. It has some buttons here in the header. It has my artwork. It has the overview of the podcast. And on the front page, it has a list of a bunch of podcast episodes, and you can load more. And you can see all the back catalog. And if you click on any single one of these, it goes to the individual dedicated page, and it has the show notes and the links, and some additional episodes to listen to. In the footer, it's got some recent episodes, some other pages you can go to, and again, all the things you need to be able to subscribe in the places you'd like to subscribe. It also has a blog. I have a guest writer who writes things for me. It's really nice of him. In fact, I have one I need to add. It's been sitting in my inbox for about a week now. Got to add that. It's got a review page for all the people who've left reviews of the podcast. That's pretty cool. And you can load more to see them as they come in, and that's great. So you can always have a way to display and show off your reviews. And then it has a contact page. Hey, drop a line. Here you go. Enter all your information and contact the person who hosts this podcast. And it has a search feature too, so you can search for a specific episode. Mode of Dust. Cool. And a homepage. Now, if I search for Practical Stoicism Podcast, here I am at stoicismpod.com, first result. And then I've got my own webpage for my tannerhelps.com, and of course the listing in Apple Podcasts, and probably some other ones here on Spotify. This one isn't me. But let's see if we search for just Stoicism Podcast. There are probably some better contenders than me. I would be surprised if I was on the first page. That would be pretty cool. I am not. And if I'm not on the second, I'll just weep. Practical Philosophy. Oh boy. Oh man, I'm buried. But the point is, you have a web presence. Now, one of the things that people worry about when they approach the idea of building a website is, this is a lot of work. I don't really know what I'm doing. Building a website sounds like something I can't handle. And in truth, that's probably true for most people. Building a website from the ground up is very difficult. It's a skill set that I had to learn over many years. It was one of the first jobs I had, was a web designer and web developer. When I started my first business, in fact, it was a web design company. But most people don't know how to do that. It's very intimidating, and it took me years to learn how to do it well. And you don't have years to learn how to become a web designer. I mean, you're a podcaster, not a web designer. So podpage.io is something that can solve that problem for you. So you can come here and say, I want to create my website. And it's, oh, I'm sorry. That's just my dog. Having a time. There he is. Having a bark at the mailman. Don't ever try to break into my house, guys, unless you have a steak. He'll bark at you, and then you'll feed him, and he'll be very passive after that. Anyway, so you will sign up for an account, and you'll enter in your RSS feed, and it will just spit out a website without you having to do any work whatsoever. But I'm going to log into mine to show you what this looks like on the back end. You can see I host all my podcasts here, and you can tell that the The websites are pretty similar. I mean, we've got Practical Stoicism, Good Morning Podcasters, Myth Dictionary, and all of those look very the same, right? If I click on this one and I go to visit the site, well, this looks an awful lot like Practical Stoicism. It's just different coloring, same basic setup. And if I go to Good Morning Podcasters, it's the same. Well, it's a little different. I kind of changed this a little bit. But, it's pretty much the same site, and it's really easy to build. Now, should you have a custom website that's, really on your brand and all that stuff? Well, sure, if you want. But the important thing about about a website for a podcast is just that it has the episodes, it has a blog, it has a way for you to get content online to build a body of work. That's what's most important. And when you're first starting out, this is a great solution because it's affordable and it's easy. So let's go over the pricing first. Podcastpage.io. If you're paying monthly, we're talking about $15 a month. One website, auto import episodes, all these things. You get it all. $15. Pretty affordable. If you decide to pay annually, it ends up being $12, so that's $144 for the year. Now let's talk about how easy it is to set up. Once you import your RSS feed, it's going to ask you to choose. In fact, let's go ahead and add a site. I'll walk you through the process of this. Although I've reached my site limit, so let's see what I can do about that. Looks like I might need to upgrade my plan to add more sites. So I'll go ahead and add 5 sites. I'll change my plan. It's going to think for a minute. Your plan has been changed. It'll take a few minutes to finalize. Great. So I'll go back to my sites and I'll click add a new site. And now I'm going to show you how easy this is. This is super straightforward. You'll love this. I'm going to go to Pretend Fantasy Podcast, which is at, I almost thought it already had its own website. I've been using it for so long for this class. I'm going to sign in and I will grab the RSS feed from Sounder. And all I have to do that is just click Manage Podcast and copy RSS feed. Now I'll come back here and I'll paste, or rather I'll name the website. So we'll call it Pretend Fantasy Podcast. Continue. Oh, what am I doing? I think I am hitting too many shortcut keys. There we go. Creating the site. Done. Okay, let's find the podcast. Well, we're not going to find it because I haven't actually distributed it. So instead, I'm going to paste my RSS feed in here, right here, just like that. And I'm going to hit import. And when I do that, it's going to say, great, we got it. Now we're going to need you to select a theme. Oh, these are some pretty cool themes. So you can kind of thumb through these to see what you like. There are actually some new ones in here. I haven't seen these before. I'm actually kind of excited about that because, I was using an old theme. How about this one with the sassy French girl? Or this one. This one looks good, or this one looks great. Okay, let's click this one. Select theme. All done. Thanks very much. Hooray, your website is now ready. Well, that was easy. And now I'm taken to a customizer. Now look what's already happened. I've got my artwork there. I've got the only episode we have, which is the fake trailer we made. And I've already got a website with all these menu options and everything. Now, of course, there's nothing here, but it's pretty straightforward to set it up. So let's look at the general settings. First of all, the site logo. Well, I probably don't want it to be the podcast page logo, but I don't have a logo for the Pretend Fantasy Podcast. So let's head over to Canva and let's make a logo, I guess. Sure, this looks, one of these looks good. I don't know. How about this one? The outside text would be Pretend Fantasy Podcast, PFP. This would be Pretend Fantasy Podcast. Oh, too big, so we'll just, maybe we will go to the spacing and go to letter spacing and bring it in a bit so it fits, just like this. This is a terrible logo, but it's just, to show you how easy this can be to set up. And then I'll go ahead and probably delete the background if I can. I can't, so maybe I can resize the background. There we go. Width 500, height 500. We'll probably stick with, let's say, a 400 width and, I don't know, let's say a 250 height in pixels. Copy and resize. That looks more like this. And I guess we'll scale all this up like this. Although this doesn't really look like a logo for this podcast, does it? This looks kind of stupid. I'm going to delete it. And instead, I'll search for that monster sketch again. And maybe we can find in Elements one of those monsters. Hey, here's one. Boom. We'll go ahead and make this bigger. Or maybe we'll make it a little smaller and put it over here. And then we'll get that font again, if we can remember what that was. For right now, we'll add Pretend Fantasy Podcast. And I guess we'll bring this guy down considerably. There we go. We've got something that looks more like what we would have as a logo for this Pretend Fantasy Podcast, although this font is wrong, and I don't know that I will find it here. I think we used Railway Heavy, if I'm remembering correctly. There we go. Here we go. Okay, hey, that's our logo. Let's go ahead again and resize this to maybe like 100 high and 400 width. That's probably better. And then we can scale these up. And this isn't going to look great, but at this time I feel like I've spent too much time showing you how to create a fake logo. And then I'll go ahead and share it. Although I wish I could make this transparent. Yeah, there's no transparent background. So I'll just share it with a white background. You could spend more time on this. I won't spend, maybe I can do it just like that. Yeah, but we'll leave it as white. So we'll download it and we'll save it into our downloads folder. And we'll just call it Pretend Fantasy Podcast Logo. And now it's saved, and I'll go back to here, and I'm going to trash that podcast logo, and I'm going to upload a new one, which is right here. Now this is going to have a white background, so it's going to look a little bit awkward. So we will change the background here and make it white. But let's keep going. Background color. To match our brand colors, we're going to make the background colors white. Primary font, well, we already know we don't want it to be what it is, and I think we can probably find Railway in here. There it is. And now Railway is our font. Secondary font family, I'll select Open Sans. There we go. And main font size. Let's save all, and let's refresh this customizer. We'll probably leave it at 30. Body font weight, 300. That means kind of like no bolding. Body, top, bottom padding. Probably leave that where it was. Maybe we'll take it down to 50. Default font color, black. Primary accent color, I don't know, let's make it, well, we see what it's doing here. It's changing the color of the player. So we are a black and white kind of color scheme so far, so I'll just make it kind of like this, kind of like a gray as an accent. Primary hover color, well, that's going to happen when we hover over things, right? So let's change this maybe to actually black. That makes sense given our color scheme for this artwork. Display powered by pod page link, a podcast page link. No, we're going to hide that. I don't need everybody to know that I used a builder for this. Voice message button. Well, over here, you can see that there's a little icon, and if somebody clicks on it, they can leave your podcast a voicemail, and you can get it, and maybe you could play it back in your podcast when you edit it. But I'm going to turn that off. I don't want that. Scroll to top button. If I turn that on, it's going to create a little button over here where I can return to the top very easily instead of scrolling all the way up. But that feels kind of necessary, so I'll leave it off. Animated page loader. So that's while the page is loading, there'll be like a little spinning icon to give people a sense of the fact that the page is loading, but I don't think that's necessary. Podcast image ratio. If I change it to flexible, that would allow me to upload podcast artwork that wasn't square, but I'm going to keep it at square because my artwork is square. I'm going to save all, and then I'm going to go back, and let's look at the header and footer settings. Header layout, display header. Turn it off, it gets rid of that top menu. Leave it on, it shows you the top menu. Okay, sticky header. Well, if I scroll down, you'll notice that the header with the menu disappears. I scroll past it. But if I enable sticky header, well, it stays with me as I scroll. I kind of like that, so I'll leave it there. Header background color, let's go with white. Our logo will look best with that, although our logo is very small. Logo position left, logo width. Let's adjust this. There we go. Okay, cool. Now we'll notice because of the background that we've lost being able to see some of what's here because it's in white text. So navigation location, right, left, center, left. I think we'll keep it on the right because I kind of like it being juxtaposed to the logo like that. We'll drop the logo width to 320 just so it's a nice even number. I like even numbers. If we mess with this heading pad, we can, add padding to that top area. So if we could thin it out a little bit, I kind of like it like that. That's good. Navigation top margin. We're adding padding to the top of the menu. I'm going to leave that at 0. Navigation right left. We'll probably leave that at 20. It looked pretty good there. Navigation font color, well, it can't be FFFFF because that's white, so we'll make it black. And now we can see it. Navigation font hover color, that's what happens when I hover over the font. Well, okay, let's make that that kind of grayish color that we had before. So when we hover over it, we'll get some kind of color indication. Cool, pretty easy. Navigation font size, we can play with this if we want it to be a little bit bigger or smaller. I kind of liked it where it was, around 14 I think is where it was. That's good, maybe 16, 18. Play with it and get it to where you want. Navigation item underline. That means the page you're on will be underlined so you know where you're at. I kind of like that, so I'll leave it there. And that's all that's on this customization menu. So let's hit back. And now we'll go to navigation menu links. We could change the menu items. So right now, I don't have an about section, so, we'll leave that because I'll show you how to customize that. I don't have a blog, but I don't have really any of these things. But I'll get rid of blog because we're not going to write one. Reviews is good to have, but I'll drag and drop it below contact so it's the last thing. And notice it's changing it here on the menu. So we'll go home, about, episodes, reviews, contact. And then we have this subscribe button. Subscribe links in navigation. No, I don't want it to show up there. I want it to be somewhere else. So for right now, I'm just going to do that. Search in navigation. I don't know. We don't need a search. We'll turn it off. Pop-up, subscribe pop-up title. This is if we were to leave this on, but we turned it off. So that's all for this panel. Let's save it. And then we'll go back and we'll go to top header. And if we turn it on or off, we have a section that will appear above the menu header and we can use to send like site-wide messages. So I could change this maybe to that kind of like gray color, and it could be where I announce new episodes. But I'm going to turn it off because I don't really like it there. Then I have to remember to update it all the time, which is also a hassle. Footer layout. Well, let's scroll down to the bottom and let's see if we've got anything in the footer. Do we really want this here? Is this necessary? Maybe. How many columns do we want in the footer? How about just I don't know, just one column, maybe. Nah, I don't even like the footer. Let's turn it off. We don't need it there. Again, we'll save it and go back. We'll go back again because we've done all these settings now. And then we'll go to audio player. And we'll scroll up to where we can see the audio player. Do we want a sticky audio player? Well, let's see what happens when we turn that on. Now the player is stuck to the bottom of the page, so it's always there. I don't really like that. So I'll keep that off. Use an embedded audio player. Now, if I click that, it's going to change from the podcastpage.io player to my Sounder player automatically. It knows who my host is because it knows my RSS feed. I don't really like that because I haven't customized this player, and there's nothing really wrong with the one that's there, native to podcastpage.io, so I'll leave that there. Icon play color. Again, we can change this if we want to override what we had already set before. I kind of want to clear this. Yeah. Hover color, again, I think we picked like this gray color, right? So it's something like this. Audio sound waves, if we enable it, we see in the player an audio sound wave that is representative of the actual sound in the podcast. But you can't see it because my guess is that it's white currently on a white background, so you can't see it. And there's something to customize in here, I'm sure, to make that a different color. But for now, just so we can stay seeing the playhead, I'm going to disable it. Audio real-time color. So you can see that changes the color of the rail line, which is where the playhead kind of travels across. I'll leave it at something like this. Audio progressed color. So if this, let's play this for a second. Hi, welcome to about it, and so this is the progressed area, the black area. Do we want to make it different? I don't know. We could make it red, but I don't think that really goes with our theme, so we'll keep it black. There's the audio player border. If I turn that on, we're going to get a weird square around it. I don't know why you'd want that, but maybe some people would. Audio player inner title. Doesn't seem to be doing anything because of the format of player we have down here. Here you go. You can see it adds the title to above the player. I don't think that's necessary since right now the title's already there. Social sharing button. So that would be this button here. Do we want people to be able to click this and share this socially? Maybe. I think it takes up space and I don't particularly like it, so I'll turn it off. Do we want people to be able to download our audio files directly? Well, I don't really like that. I'll turn that off. Speed rate button. Do we want people to be able to play it at 1.5, 1.25, 2 times speed? I don't really like that either. I want people to listen to my podcast the way I want them to listen to it in real time, so I'll turn that off. Display the play icon only. If I do that, you just get a play button instead of all those additional controls. But I'll leave that off. And then I'll save this. And I'll go back. And we'll move on to global episode list. Ascending, descending, episode count. Now, if I had a bunch of episodes here, we'd be seeing more than just this trailer. But, we only have one episode, so that's just the way it is. Episode column count. We can't see that on the front page because this is actually not a front page setting. So I'll go to episodes. And if I adjust the column count here, if I had more episodes, I would see this begin to collapse into more of a square than this long thing. But I actually kind of like it being just one column. Episode category filters. Well, we don't have more than one category, so we can't really show you what that looks like. Singular episode page. So the singular episode page is what it sounds like. It's the page that comes up when you're on a single episode. Do we want to show the episode artwork or do we want to hide it? I think it's a little redundant in this case because we don't have any episode-specific artwork, but let's go ahead and show it because you would have episode-specific artwork. Do we want to show the metadata? The metadata is this stuff up here. Well, let's turn that off. I don't think we need to see that, or do we? It's up to you. Episode summary display. That'll be the text that you put there that's, part of the podcast when you uploaded it and described it. This is what will show up here. I just put the podcast trailer. Episode header background color. Well, how about white? I mean, white and black seem to be our thing, so how about we just leave it at white? What's wrong with that? Looks good to me. Top padding, probably fine where it was, 64. Bottom padding, probably also fine. Summary font color, it is a little light, so maybe we could make it darker so it's easier to read. That changed the color here. Podcast participant display. Off and on. This is who it's hosted by. Hosted by Tanner Campbell. Participant heading color, we can't see it. It's white right now, so let's change it to black. Then let's save all. Maybe we can refresh it and see those changes. There's also this subscribe now button. If we click it right now, it'll pop up a modal window, but I don't really like that. I'd rather have it be a list of icons like that, or maybe it's a button list like that, or maybe it's hidden and it's not there at all. I kind of like the icon list, just like that. Related episode display. Well, there are no related episodes because this is the only episode, so it's kind of hard to show you to flesh out the full website, but if there were additional episodes, they'd be there. We'll leave it as showing because we will add them in the future. Default background image. Well, let's see what we might be able to find here. Maybe we could change this color now. I do maybe like the idea of it being just a little off-white, so it seems less homogeneous, you know? That looks pretty good. We can adjust the episode title font size. 36 looks good. And now this is saved, so we'll save it and we'll go back. And now we'll go to pages and blog. Well, we're not going to set up a blog because I think you get it at this point. Sidebars. Do I want sidebars? Well, if I turn it on, I will suddenly have a sidebar section over here. You can't really see it, but here we go. There we go. We turn display sidebar on episodes. This is a dedicated episode page, so now there's the sidebar. The only thing that's in the sidebar right now is a search for episodes. Sidebar heading size. Maybe we could make that a little smaller, a little bigger. I honestly don't like having the sidebar there, so I'll just go ahead and turn it off on all the pages. Save it again and go back. Subscribe and social, so we can fill in our social links here, wherever they appear on the site. Pretty easy. Donations and memberships. Do I want to add a donation link? Donation navigation link text. Let's say donate. Comes in a big, nice button. Donation modal heading. Ways to support our show. Ways to support PFP. Button color. Let's make it a BOB, a big orange button. Really stands out. Button text. Can be white, that's fine. Button hover background color. Right now if we hover over it, it turns black, so we probably don't want that. Or, well, it could turn black, but maybe we need the text color to be, the button hover text color to be white. That way when we hover over it, we can still see it. So that's pretty good. Button border radius, we could make it square if we wanted. I kind of like square better. And then insert your donation membership buttons below. So we'll do, I don't know, let's just say buy me a coffee. And we'll go https buymeacoffee.com/TannerHelps. That's my buy me a coffee. And we don't need another one because we only have one way to support this show. And now if I click on it, a modal opens and there's a link to buy me a coffee. And if you click on it, it'll take you to my Buy Me a Coffee. There it is. People can support me with this pretend fantasy podcast. So we'll save, we'll go back, and we'll custom CSSs for people who know CSS. You may not, so I'm not going to dive into that. Let's go back to header and footer, I think. Header layout. General settings. It's not that one. I guess maybe it's header and footer. Header layout. I think there'd be a place to do a background here, but somewhere in these settings, I'm not going to make you sit through much more of this. Somewhere in these settings, we can change the background of the image that's up here. So I'll spend maybe a couple more minutes trying to find it. Top header, that's that part. We turn that off. Header layout, that's that. That's not actually what we want. Maybe this is top header. Nope. Footer layout. Audio player, global episode lists, pages and blog. No. Sidebar, subscribe and social. Edit homepage, perhaps. Let's click that. Oh, great. So now we can edit this homepage. We don't like this image, so maybe we want to change the image. General. Layout. All these fancy settings in here. Here's our background. Let's get rid of that. And we could add a different background in here, or we could just change the background color to make it stand out. Maybe it's black. What's wrong with that? Cool. What else did we have here? That's pretty good, I think. Let's go ahead and save the page. Page updated. Go back to where we were. Visit the site. And here we have a site that's pretty on brand. I mean, we've got our title of our podcast here. We've got our artwork. We have our description here. We've got a player. We've got all of our episodes. Hey, it doesn't look bad. Pretty easy to build. Didn't take a lot of skill set. Just a nice customizer over there on the left-hand side of the screen, and you've got yourself a website. And that's all it takes. Now, you could choose to, I don't know, stand up a WordPress installation, or you could choose to just use, if you go to Sounder, they give you a website for your podcast that doesn't cost you anything, podcast webpage. They'll give you this. And you can, as I think I went over in a previous video, you can go into Customize and you can change the color of this website. You can change the player customization like that, and I can go into the Customize web page and I can, make the secondary color, let's say, I don't know, white's probably good, and make the primary color, something darker like that. And then we can go ahead and save it. And go back to Customize, and we can see that now the website looks a little bit more in line with what our brand is for this Pretend Fantasy podcast. And we can hit play and go to the individual episode page. And this is something you can start with. I mean, it's also got subscribe buttons. It's also got ways to share. It's also got about this episode and the transcript and everything. So this is what you could start with minimally. Podcastpage.io is what you could move to over time so that you could have something a little bit more, just a little nicer looking, a little bit more professional than just the default page that comes with your podcast hosting provider. And then if you're ever ready to do it, and if you ever feel like you need it, you can stand up a professional website, WordPress, or, one of those other platforms, and you can make something truly custom that no one else has and really blow it out of the water. But do you need to? I mean, I don't. And I've got a podcast that's pretty successful. I've got a couple other podcasts that are moderately successful. And I've never had a problem using one of these builders. If you don't like podcastpage.io, there's also if you don't like podcastpage.io, there's also podpage.com, which is a very similar offering. It does the same thing. It looks different. It works a little different, but ultimately it just gives you a website that you can customize easily and move forward with having a website, which is nice. So I think that's all we need to say on websites. If you have questions, ask them in the Discord, but you now have 3 different options. You can stand up your own WordPress installation. You can use the website that Sounder provides you, or you can use a service like podcastpage.io to build a website. for your podcast, your real actual podcast and not your pretend fantasy podcast. So hope this has been helpful. See you in the next video. Take care.